Evening, beautiful souls. I'm on here, Instagram Live, and I'm just like filled with messages. I've been getting so much downloads and information that is flowing through me for the past several hours. And one of the things that I want to talk about is relationships. It seems to be the theme of things that's happening astrologically right now. And, I think about all the pain that we have endured for centuries when it comes to relationships and how we interrelate with one another. Hi, Kelly. How are you? How art thou? And one of the things that I've been guided to talk about is these relationships that we have. Where does it start from? And how do we, I don't want to say fix it, but how do we hello, beautiful sister. How do we change? How do we change the things that have happened throughout lifetime when it comes to these relationships? And I'm talking about all types of relationships. So whether it's love, even the relationships with your children, who you work with, the relationships that you've had interdynamically, no matter what, even if it's a business relationship. And I say again, it starts from within you. That's where the change begins. And there's, even when I walk on the street now and I look at people, because I remember when I started out in my full-blown twin soul awakening, I should say, because I consider myself to be awakened to things from I was 3 years young, but I didn't remember that I was on a path, of course, at the age of 3. So at the age that I am now from the past 3, 4 years, I realized there was something more going on than, what I did not remember. And so I've been observing people since that time. And so what I've been observing now as I've reached to another level during this course of my ascension is that there are so much wounds that we carry. There's so much wounds that is within the soul. And, a lot of times there's questions that come up very often, when I do readings for others. And, most of the time, majority of the time, these readings are coming from those who are on a twin flame path, or they're on a path where they're in something is happening to that through that person, I would say, where they're in relationships that are becoming changed and moving towards that sacredness. And, so it's either that they're breaking up with someone, or there's something that they're having cosmically that's happening where they're having dreams and they're having visions and a lot of supernatural things that are happening. And so, one of the questions that's always asked of me is, what's going on with my love life? Or is this my twin? And I always tell people, I don't tell you who your twin is because this has to do with you. It's your self journey. It's your path. And a lot of times the first thing that comes out of the mouth, and usually majority of the time is females, but I have had males that contact me too, to do with their path. Some are in relationships, some are not. And, I tell them, hey, it still has to do with you and what's showing up. And the minute they start to say, this one did so and so, and this one did so and so, then I say to them, well, this actually has to do with you. And so if something shows up, say, for instance, for example, that your divine partner or your twin soul says something to you saying, you're not good enough for me, or you're not doing this good enough, or they pull away, or, whatever the circumstance, because everyone is different circumstances and it's just different ways that we respond and what we're projecting also. And I tell them, I said, well, did you realize that they're acting out something to how you're feeling inside? And it's something that more than 99.9 times, it is something that was within you from either yourself or from a generation. And so someone even that I read for last night, she said, well, I wasn't like that, that wasn't like that with my dad, because in this case, it had to do with a male relationship that she had, and the male relationship who she was married to that person. It was something that was still reflecting from a relationship that existed with her grandmother and her mother, even though she didn't experience it with the person she was with, but she experienced it with someone prior to that. So no matter what, we can't really escape from certain things that occur in our life. But the moment you bring it into an awareness of what it is, and you see what is showing up, when it comes to whether it's abuse, whether it's physical or verbal abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, if there's any pain, if there's any type of separation, death, or anything that's happened to do with arguments and circumstances that surround with you, with your siblings and so on. It's so many different factors. There's so many different elements of things that occur in relationships. And one of the things that what I noticed, that most people are not aware of what they're carrying within themselves. They're not aware of where it comes from within them, and the way that you shift in order to recreate relationships that are more healthier, I would say, and harmonious, is start from within yourself. It still comes back to you. It still reflects from within you. Even when I was talking to her, I noticed there was patterns of things that she experienced that I experienced myself when I was having a relationship with my oldest son's father. And I told her, I said, wow, he was very manipulating also. And he did certain things that were very hurtful. And I never thought that I would ever have that type of hatred towards someone because my children were involved. And, I told her, I said, I had to come to a realization eventually that a lot of things that I experienced at that time had to do with how much more was coming into my own power. And so it was necessary for the things that I experienced with him to go through that, where even, he looked at me and he would say, like at that time, he said, oh, we're going to stop this. We're not going to have these arguments anymore, because my mom had passed away. And he said, let's just let bygones be bygones. And 2 weeks later, what he did was that he then took me to court to take my son for custody. And so I had to look at myself again, and I was shown by spirit that something was, going to be happening to do with my son. And I knew I had to let go, because no matter what happened, love still existed. No matter what he did, no matter what he said, its love still prevailed. You see, it did not change anything as far as how I felt towards my son, or the fact that my son didn't grow up with me any longer from that point. But what I realized is that I still kept trekking forward and knowing that I love my son, unconditionally, and from the distance that had occurred with where he was living and where I was, and where I am now in this place of who I am, that this is what especially twin souls are here to do, is to transcend all these barriers to love, all the elements of pain that we have had, and all these things. Oh my goodness, I think someone's calling me. An interrupt. Yeah, how do I know? I don't want to end my thought though, because it's like one of the things that's coming through to me so strongly is how we relate to each other and deal with the pain that we carry when it comes to relationships. And these relationships show up as far as what is necessary for our healing and to be able to move forward, to come into harmony, whether it's you're coming to be back with your twin soul, or it's going to show up through another divine relationship, and so on and so forth. And it goes in layers and layers and layers. And these layers that show up is what is necessary to bring it into an awareness, so that way you're able to feel freer and you're able to feel in greater peace. And so oftentimes the things that show up is from the inner child wounds. And these inner child wounds are things that occur based on things that you experienced as a child and it was never addressed. You never healed from it. You feel like as if you couldn't forgive either the person or your family or whoever it is that is involved. A lot of times there's things that come into play that's based on religion. It's based on what someone has telling you what to do or how to feel or who to be with and all these things. A lot of times, sometimes it shows up as, like I said, abuse, physical or verbal abuse. Sometimes it even can show up as, like sometimes when someone puts someone down and makes them feel less than a person, or makes them feel like as if there isn't anything that they can attain in their life, because if they don't do whatever they say to do, there's that control and manipulation also. And then there's fear factors that come into play with this as well, where people are in fear of being themselves. And so what often happens is that when it's not addressed throughout the time of childhood and, becoming a teenager and so on and so forth, then that person turns to something to cover it up, to mask it. And it's either they turn to drugs, they turn to crime, they turn to having more sex as an addiction, or they go into relationships and then they take it out on that, that person, instead of healing from it. And so usually what happens is that as human beings, the mask would continue, and it goes in more layers and more layers, and then there's more pain. And so I feel now what's happening is that those who are ascending to a certain level of consciousness, because I can tell you that I've been getting so much colds coming in. Oh my goodness me. And then I started having hot flashes again and heat coming through my body. And I was telling my friend, she's also on a twin soul path, when she was mentioning something to take or whatever, so that we can go, into the higher realms. And I told her, I said, I don't even need that. I said, because I go so high in frequency that I couldn't even sleep. From 2 days ago, I couldn't even sleep. I was up until like 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I knew I was receiving codes that were coming in from Sirian codes and Paleidian, because that's all I keep hearing in my head is Paleidian and Sirian, Paleidian, Sirian. So I knew for sure something was coming in, and all that keeps showing up in my space, regardless of where, I'm looking at social media, TV program, whatever. And it's in relation to relationships. And I say again, the minute or the moment that you feel something towards someone or an event, when I say feel something, I'm talking like anger, frustration, indifference, any of these things, it's okay to talk about it. When you talk about it, think about how it makes you feel. Then when you think about how it makes you feel and you are in awareness of how it makes you feel, the next thing is, what do I do? What do you do next? What you do next is that you could either analyze it, release and let it go, blow it out, write it out, scream it out, yell it out, curse it out. And as you do that and you realize, because one of the things that I have the ability to do is bring it into light, what's been hidden within you, that darkness. Because it's in that darkness that you're able to bring things to light. And as you bring it to light, then what you're doing is you're creating more freedom for yourself. And what happens is you're also triggering every single soul, every single being, every single element of life that is in your space. You are triggering it to heal as well. You're bringing up more things to the surface. So some of you might find yourself feeling like you're arguing with more people, or it feels chaotic, or it looks chaotic, but just know that it's all a part of this awakening and this triggering and activating, because we're activating and triggering everything all at the same time. And, even on this twin soul path, there's so many twists and turns to it as well. And I say, just be in divine flow. Be in your inner knowing as well. I had my moments of having a little doubt about something the other day, and I felt so sad and I felt bad and I didn't know what to do. And I felt like something within me was saying I was being tested. I didn't know what, and I realized, and I said, oh my God, I need to understand this. I need to understand more of what I'm feeling, where it's coming from, because I felt so sad and I needed someone to talk to. So even the best of the best, or whoever, whatever, we still always would like to connect to someone to relate to our feelings and what we're experiencing. And that we don't have to say we're crazy, or, or what are you thinking, or it doesn't make sense, and so on. And so what I did is I reached out to someone that would understand, basically what I was experiencing. And it helped me to feel at ease with myself and my inner knowing. And it still took me about another day or so before I felt like I was coming back to myself, because I knew still in my heart that a lot of things that we've all been going through for the past, especially during the summer season, for those who are in the, whatever part of the world you're in, where we're having summer and summer, having winter season. But either way, the planets are in motion. And they're playing a major role in us and our awakening, okay? And going on so many levels. And everyone has been feeling the heaviness and feeling the intensity of all this energy. And so during Mercury retrograde, what's interesting is that the weather had been so hot every single day in New York, every day. But I won't complain because I love the warmth. I'm from the islands. I love it. And when I think of the month of August that is almost over, that means fall is coming, and then it's time to put on the sweaters, time to put on the coat soon and everything. And so it kind of makes me feel sad in a way, but still, if we didn't have some of these duality experiences, then we wouldn't know what we can celebrate and what we can look forward to with having the opposite. So, so we're coming up now to the, equinox that's coming up as well. But back to what is at hand in the now moment is that the retrogrades have played a very major, major role in whatever has to shift within us. Mars, Mercury is moving forward now as of today, but it's not subjected to the date on a calendar because it's an energy. That's why it's so important to pay attention to your body, pay attention to how you're responding to life, because we are governed and we respond to the planetary existence. It's like, that's a fact. It's like everything and all of the moon cycle, the sun cycle, everything, all of it it responds to us. And so as Mars is going direct, and of course communication will now start to shift, because we all have had to keep going through more reviews of our life and reviews of how we are we listening to the things that we should be doing as far as our path, and how much resistance have you had to yourself and where the divine has led you. Mars being in retrograde, where the planet Mars is ruled by to do with the masculine energy and the frustration, the anger, the pain, all of that is ruled by Mars. Also, Venus had been retrograde. It was 5 planets in retrograde. So there's a lot of pain, wounds that were coming up also. And everyone was going through different levels of experiencing all of this. So, but one thing I do know for sure is that it was all for the best. It was all for the good, and you weren't being punished. And so with Mars being retrograde, it goes out of retrograde on the 26th next week. But then also, we also have the full moon in Pisces that's coming up. My moon is in Pisces. So it's like with being in the Piscean energy, that's definitely bringing on the element of how much we're connecting to this consciousness, and how much we're connecting to the light, how much we're connecting to the divine, because everything that's showing in reverse, these cycles, the eclipse energy is also that has been eclipsing things out of our lives. And so the elements of all this energy is what is leaving and then what's coming in. And what's coming in more and more, what Spirit is showing me right now, which I've always stated this before, is the spiritual, etherical, astral aspect of ourselves, the multidimensional. It's like really merging all of it together, heaven on earth, whichever way you want to put it together, the merging of the yin and the yang, the light and the dark, how do you view the dark energy? Are you in fear of it, or are you embracing it? Are you integrating yourself? How are you handling this, within yourself? Because it all plays a significant role in what happens next for you. Very important to look up your chart and to know what is aspecting for you. I'm not an astrologer, and Spirit always say, well, stop saying you're not an astrologer because you were before. I was before in a past life, apparently. But you know what? I don't choose to dive into it right now because I'm already dealing with all the different aspects of myself. And, I find myself even speaking and saying things, and I'm like, did I say that? Oh my goodness, that was my higher self. Having the heat flashes has nothing to do with my age. It has to do with my light body that is templating more into my physical body. And everything that's coming through from dreams and, the synchronizations, the number sequences, the sacred geometry, all of that is playing a part in the role in what is happening for us right now. We are also coming into that space of what we're templating as far as our gifts. That's what I've been hearing also a lot, meaning that anything that we have, I would say everything who we have, how we have been from the beginning of time, especially like I feel like as if Atlantis is here, like that energy of Atlantis is here. And when I say it's here, meaning that before there were so many blocks that would come through from what happened then, because the divine feminine went through so much pain during that time with being separated from her divine counterpart. And that is because the masculine had turned themselves away from the feminine. and they decided that, they wanted to be more powerful and take things into their own hands, and the experimentation stuff that was going on back in Atlantis. And so what had happened is that, thank you so much, Kelly, I love you so much. And what has happened is that when that had occurred, the divine feminine, of course, that's what we went through when it came to abandonment issues and being let down, not only just by the divine feminine, but also feeling let down by the divine. We felt left out and abandoned by God. I remember when I had a soul reading by Judith Cassell. It was so different because it's like she was reading my soul. She wasn't reading who, whatever was aspecting in charts. She was reading what is imprinted within my soul. I wanted to understand more what was going on to do with my twin flame path. So I had it done about 4 years ago. And I realized that what had wrestled within me, which if it was within me, that means it probably more likely was within a lot of divine feminines, was how do we balance out between, whether you're a mom and you have children, then you have your, either if it's your husband or your partner, and then you have your career. And it's about, how we bring all of these things into balance, and not feeling like as if you're not taking time for yourself, or then, or there's not something that's happening, because you want to feel and be in that expression of love, not only with yourself, but with your partner. And it's a fact. That's it. It's all, everything plays a part and a role together. And one of the things that stood out the most several times that was written, because I had incarnated in Egypt, also known as Kemet, more than 6 times. And one of the things was that during that time, we were involved in the priestess and the priestesshood, the shamanism, all that stuff. And I know the females that we were the ones that were doing everything, and that the males were only used as far as for procreational purposes and lifting heavy stuff, which was also during the Amazon time frame. I guess there's a reason why Spirit wants me to bring it up, because it's still deep within the subconsciousness. It's still deep within our soul when it came to that time and that journey. And so we had separate, different cycles of experiencing what it was like when the females were, those were in the female bodies. And even though they were in the female bodies, some of us carried more masculine energy during that time. And then there was that time when the males were more dominant, but then of course the patriarchy did, stay longer in this frequency for centuries. So now we're bringing things into balance. I remember when I was married before, and I knew within myself that that being in balance with things is what really matters for each and every one of us. And I had told my ex-husband that time, I said, hey, I don't mind if, hang out with your friends. And I want to be with my friends too sometimes. Sometimes I want to be by myself. Sometimes I want to have my children with me. Sometimes I don't. And sometimes I want to do it all together. And so this is what it's going to be like on the new earth, you see. And for it to be in that space, we have to be able to balance out within ourselves first, you see. And that means that we're not going to be in a space of wanting to be in control of what the other is doing and saying, and thinking that if you're not with them, that means you're not in love, or you start creating the consciousness of cheating, the cheating mechanism, or if they're with someone else, or even if they're with someone else, and where that love is coming in together, for each and every one. But it's bringing it on a different frequency and understanding of it, though. Okay. Because during that time during Atlantis, there were phases of experimentation that took place. And this information was brought to my awareness and memory from several months ago. I don't remember when, but it did come to me, and I'm sticking to my guns, what was shown to me. And this is the fact that when I started out recording the book, The Return of the Garden Eden, I wasn't having conversations to do with labeling, the specific label of twin souls, but I was more brought to the element of saying kings and queens. And one of the things that was shown to me by Spirit is that each one of us are a match, a frequency match to someone. Okay, we're a frequency match to a lot of things, and it's not saying that one is better than the other. It's just that we all carry specific codes, tones, colors, like the colors of my soul, which you can't be surprised, is like pink and magenta. And I'm from that the element of love. I bring forth love. I'm just, everything's just love. Just want to be love, 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 and the colors, magenta, pink, and all that stuff. And so, and then the numbers that I emanate from to it within my frequency, because it was given to me, so it was shown to me, is the number 6 and the ones, the vibration that comes from me with the numbers and the sacred geometry, 717 and the sevens, seventh central son of the central sun, and the son of the sun, and the son of God, son and the daughter of the sun, all of these words and things were coming to me, the mysteries of the white lion, the goddess, the warrior goddess, Nefertiti consciousness, Set consciousness, okay, the divine feminine, Aphrodite, all of that energy of the divine feminine within me, and that I template her, all of her, right? 11th dimensional consciousness, 10th dimensional consciousness, and higher. I went even as high as the 40th dimensional, and I was like, okay, I think I can't go any further than that right now. It was a lot of information, because for me as an Aquarian, I just want to keep going on and on, I find it to be so intriguing when it comes to this journey. And sometimes it can be really, challenging and not so happy, not so great. But this is a part of it. The key thing is that as we continue to blend in all these frequencies and integrating all the parts of ourselves that we may not necessarily like, then anything that is the opposition, or what we call the opposite of ourselves, shows up less. You know what I mean? And it doesn't affect you as much. So when I go back to Atlantis now, okay, Atlantis never left, by the way. It's still here with us. It's always been here. It's just that we had to bring it into its awareness of what we were shifting and clearing out with the density, the density that has been on the planet for so long. And I just keep hearing from messages that Mother Gaia is in such gratitude for us bringing the element of the divine feminine, I would say deeper, wider, and higher, all at the same time, totally multidimensionally. And so when I go back to what I was saying to do with the book, when I was mentioning about the kings and queens and the frequency matches, is that the element of what matches in frequency is what is coming together collectively as each twin comes in. And some of us may not necessarily be in physical contact or in a physical space with our twin, because certain people in our space, they have to be at a certain level of consciousness to be able to be around us, okay? Even my own self, just myself, and I cannot imagine if it was myself and my twin. I went to a crystal shop, and this woman, she never met me before, and right away she was like, oh my God, I feel all this energy coming from you. Oh my goodness, this is something. I can feel it, and your aura and this and that. She was just feeling the whole thing, and I was already in the shop with all these crystals. And so imagine for many of you out there, wherever you are, because we're all placed like strategically in different locations when it comes to these codes that are coming in, these DNA codes. And a lot of these codes that are coming in have been dormant. And so we have been constantly awakening ourselves with these codes. And each one of us that come into contact with each other, whether it's a video, talking, or in person, or so on and so forth, what it's doing is it's shifting things on the planet as well. That's why there's certain areas in the world is having more volcanic activity, and the tsunamis and the hurricanes. And, we've been having rain every single day in New York, every day for the past 60 days, I would say. And the heat, and how ironic that as soon as Mercury went direct today, the temperature dropped in the 60s. And it had been like in the high 80s every single day. But I mean, it's coming back this week, but I just noticed the shift also with the planet, at least where I am. So in every part of the world, I even heard, I saw in the news that, I can't remember which island it is or which country it is, that there was an earthquake recently, I think up until last night, and, volcanic activity. And all of this is a part of what is happening from within us, you see? And so as a lot of, I would say, divine partnerships are coming into play within the next 3 months. Now, I know I have not said those words in a very, very long time, but because I'm paying attention to how things are showing up, dynamically based on contact that I'm getting from others that have had contact from their twin, or they've had some type of connection, even if it was for 2 minutes, Just know and understand and remember, it has nothing to do with you taking it personally. It has to. Oh, Bali has had 3 and 3. Wow. There's another country, Kelly. It just, I don't remember the country. I just saw it posted in the news or something like that, because I don't really watch the news. But if I hear about anything, it's because maybe if it shows up in my feed or something, and the country was affected. I can't remember where it is. It might be closer to where you are. I'm not sure. But I'm kind of feeling that countries right now that are like in a tropical, because the way how it had been raining so much, I even told my kids, I was like, I mean, I went shopping with my kids yesterday. It was pouring, pouring, and it just makes me feel like as if I'm in the tropics. That's how it felt to me. And then the sun comes out, and then it'd be the sun and the rain at the same time, and still it represents the elements of what is blending together. The emotions and the joy at the same time, whether it's emotional sadness or emotional pain or emotional joy. Either way, it's all coming together, it's all merging, and everything is just coming into that space of interrelating and how we feel about ourselves and how we're relating to ourselves. How do you feel about your twin? Do you understand the path still, or are you still holding on to what it looks like? Or are you still in doubt whether or not that person is your twin? Or are you in doubt about the journey? All these things are still coming up, what we've had to go through as far as review. So even though Mercury went direct today, there is still the shadow period that is up until, I believe it's the 2nd of September. And so now we're heading into Virgo season. Again, I'm not an astrologist, but they say, yes, I am. So I'm just going by what's being shown to me, what I feel in energy. And so when you think of Virgo, you think of the earth, okay? And you also when I think of Virgo, I think of feminine as well. And I think of what is being planted, with the earth and how we feel. I know for myself, oh my goodness, I had so much swelling in my feet. I was really feeling like I was going through pregnancy symptoms. I was having nausea. All this was happening within the last month or two. And I put on weight on my body and all kind of stuff. And it really felt like being pregnant. And I had that dream again that I know I had did that video when I was in my car talking about it and how I gave birth to a baby girl. And I knew it had to do with me giving birth to myself. And so as we are giving birth to ourselves, what we're doing is we're giving also a birth to the divine masculine. We're giving birth to divine masculine. So it's like there is a programming that has been happening, not is happening or right now. It already has been happening. It's already been taking place. And one of the things that I feel that helps that path is how you view your relationships with whatever the relationship may be, whether it's with a male or female. See, because as you change and shift your thoughts about these relationships, and I always said too that every relationship that you've had, especially if we want to center it on the love, all your male, either husbands, boyfriends, lovers, baby mamas, baby fathers, whatever, and what was it like, and review yourself with it, observe it. If you still feel pain, if you hear, even when I told you the story to do with my son's father, if I hear his name called, or I say, it doesn't trigger me. I don't get angry. I don't get upset anymore. When you know that you have really passed to a certain stage with certain things, once you hear about it, or if the story comes up and it doesn't affect you, then you know where you're at, and you're pretty much healed with it, and it may come again, you might cry again. And then you say, oh, I thought I healed from it. I thought I was over with this. Then maybe you weren't really healed from it as much as you thought. And so that person, whoever they are, is a reflection of your twin. They show up as your twin. They show up as an aspect of your twin. Every relationship that you've had, if you're on a twin soul path, that person, because I've seen all the relationships I've had, all of them, they all show as an aspect of my twin, because I felt it. I know my twin more than I have known him without having to have had a relationship with him. because I had more of a relationship with my divine complement, who's his brother. And it's interesting how it all comes together dynamically. So what we're doing is, when someone says, well, how are you giving birth to the masculine? I mean, they're not we didn't get pregnant with them and the seed was planted. But yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it is. Because it always starts from the feminine energy first. And the masculine energy plants the seed, and then we give birth to it again as it cycles and comes in, and they become our sun, right? The sun energy, S-U-N, and also in some cases the S-O-N. Okay, we give birth to them because it had to start from somewhere. And as we give birth to them, then what happens is they become our partners, our husband, because that's why that part of the garden, where we were in bliss, we were in joy, and we were lonely. We desire to have a partner. We desire to have someone to share this glory as how God shows up, as the divine shows up through each and every one of us. And the thing is that we showed up in many different myriad of ways. Because I remember 2 times the divine showed me this, because I know when I get messages straight from the divine, were different templates of love. And it was 2s and 3s. Okay, how it started. And so, but we wiped out that memory. We descended in consciousness, and we descended in consciousness for a reason. We wanted to know what it was like to experience what we know. And so therefore we had to go through the dark period, the dark ages, the dark energy, the descension in consciousness. And so now that we are reversing the curse, as they call it, reversing the cycle, reversing the element of what was and what is, because whatever was, it still is, and whatever is was. It's just it all comes together. It's not separated, because everything that had been separated in duality, from cultures to races to foods to thoughts and languages. Going to different parts of the world, we descended in and things, and changed things, and experimented with things. And now what we're doing is we're coming back into that unity consciousness. And so that unity consciousness means that we are now going to vibrate on a higher level, and we're going to reconnect to those to whom we are connected to in a higher state of love. And, it means that we're going to just be in love with each other. And there is also going to be a part where we're in love with each other, because everything that was shown to me was that however you are in love, however it is when you're on the other side, when you don't have this physical dense body, which of course that's also changing, and this body is changing to become crystalline. It's so exciting, because as you see, because that crystalline energy, as it's coming in more and more, because as you're going in that flow of this light and love, you become lighter. And as you become lighter and you allow yourself to keep attaining and having the wisdom of God pour into your soul, you're going to become taller. We're going to be the actual natural height of 7 feet or taller. That's why my galactic being family came and showed me where I was going to live. And I knew that he was not from this place. And so you have more help than you realize to this journey and where it's taking you. And the key thing is that you don't have to be in fear. You don't have to be in fear. It's just because we're not used to things showing up and how things are happening. I even had said to someone, I don't remember who I said, can you imagine if it was the other way around, where you sit around the table with your family, you're talking about all this galactic energy, how I said, well, I do that. I don't know about you. I do not let any of that regular stuff be just the only topic of my conversation. I will be talking loud somewhere in the supermarket or whatever, and someone comes and says, oh, I heard what you were saying. I said, oh, great. What did you get? And I give them my card, because there's nothing to hide anymore. Be yourself. Be authentic. Be who you are. Because you see, the more you be who you are, the more whatever is hidden and whatever is in fear. And when I say it, I'm referring it in all respect to do with a person or anywhere that you may be gathered with people or whatever. And even if you feel that opposition, you feel that fight, or you feel that resistance, it's okay. You don't have to respond to it. You may respond to it and say, well, truth is the truth. It sets you free, and that's it. You see what I'm saying? And leave it at that. But you don't have to engage. You don't have to get into the wars. We don't have to get into wars and battles anymore when it comes to this path and this journey, because no matter what, the truth is going to prevail. The truth is going to prevail. Nothing is going to change that. And, whatever has been recorded in history, what's happened before has happened before. Now we're doing things differently. Now we're being differently. Now we're activating things. Now our divine selves is coming forth in a more powerful way. All the gifts that we have, all the elements, the passion that you have. Now is the time that you can bring it forth, and you don't have to feel like as if you're being blocked anymore. You feel like as if anyone or anything can stop you. So you see, we've worked so much towards getting to this place because remember, Yeshua did try sacred alchemy with Mary Magdalene, and and it didn't hold into that space for too long because there was so much opposition, there was so much fear, there was so much of ignorance, as well. And so now that there are more people that are awakening to themselves and connecting, because it's like it's almost like when you have something plugged in, to the computer, and if the computer is not plugged into the outlet in the wall, it can't get any charge for it to work, for you to see anything. So now what we're doing is we're reconnecting to that new grid. So all those old stories that we've experienced and had, we can let go of them finally. We can let go of the stories. We can let go of the belief system. And, I know some people say, well, I don't know which one to take. I don't what I say. If it feels good, if you feel great with a specific word that you speak, right? Or, because I'm very funny when it comes to I am. And when I say funny, I mean, well, ha ha. And also what I'm saying is what you're speaking out in consciousness. Because as you say I am, you are bringing forth something. Okay. Somehow something is coming forth after that. And what it's doing is you're bringing something into its manifestation. So if you say I am broke, you're bringing on an element of being broke. If you say I'm sick, you're bringing on the element of sickness. If you say I'm hanging in there, you're bringing on the element of hanging in there. Even though you're going to say, what do you mean I'm going to hang in there? But it's like it brings on an energy. If it doesn't make you feel good, don't speak it. Don't even give it a thought. Whatever you don't choose to experience, do not give it a thought. Let it go. Let it go. Continue to connect to Mother Earth. And that means that you're grounding yourselves. That means that you're walking on the grass. If you can't walk on the grass, walk on the stone or walk on water. Or, take those sea salt baths, bring yourself into that connection with the earth, because you have so much help and so much guidance that is coming from angels, spirit guides, your higher self, your twin's higher self. It's just so many messages. And the key thing is to pay attention to these messages, pay attention to what is happening here. And more importantly than anything else, what spirit is guiding me again is relationships. Heal the wounds of the past. It may not even necessarily be just tied to this life. It could be a past life. It could be something that, pay attention to the patterns of behavior and how relationships have been with your parents, your grandparents. Pay attention to how things have been with your own relationships, even with your children or your spouses or your lovers, whatever, your baby mothers and so forth. Because all these things that have existed before, when, that chaotic type of energy and how people have been when it comes to relationships and how they relate to each other and love, and, what they call the cheating, because cheating is really based on when it's a secret, or that person is not letting the other person know that they're having a relationship with someone else. And so when you have to get to that space where you're hiding and you're not speaking the truth, and you feel that there's a need for you to be deceptive about it, then there's something wrong with that picture. And that means that somehow it's going to come out and it's going to cause more problems. You see what I'm saying? And so this is about you being true to yourself and true to your feelings. If you know that you no longer feel something towards someone in the same way, I would say, then you think about what was it that brought you together in the first place, right? And where are you taking yourself with it now? Are you going to still hang on to it because, you have a child with them? Or are you still hanging on to it because, it was arranged by your parents and you're worried about how it's going to make them feel? Do you feel like as if it's time for you to shift your relationship to do with money and where you work? Or do you stay where it's at because you went to school to do that subject matter and therefore your money may go down the drain because you're feeling a passion to do gardening instead and to open up a green room, Or do you feel that there's a passion for you to work with animals, but you don't know how it's going to look with, see, so it's for you to connect to your passion, your joy, and what makes you feel good, how you bring on your abundance, because now we're in this time of abundance manifestation, if you so choose. And that includes with relationships, all kinds of relationships, okay? And that means that you're staying true to yourself, true to your path. You're being real with yourself, and you're being real with others. If you know something ticks you off, just tell the person. It is a false representation to say that you should not express yourself to someone if something, just made you not feel so good about it. And that if you hold back and not say something, oh, that's not the Christian thing to do, or that's not a nice thing to do, because that means you're not being a nice person. See, when we hold things within ourselves and we're not releasing it, what you're doing is you're hoarding in an energy of frustration, resentment, anger, and then it builds up to something that manifests either into some type of illness or something within the body. If you're living with someone and you know that it is uncomfortable and that, there's distance between the both of you and you know that it's over, time to let it go. If you know that you have a child that's just sitting there like a bum in the room, and I'm not meaning to label it, but they're taking all your money and all that stuff, it's time to let them go. If you know that you're in a situation at a job where you know that you're not being treated fairly, financially or whatever the situation would be, or you know that there's more that you can give with, the line of work that you do, time to move on to something else. Is it time to speak up, or is it time to balance and know when to surrender? See, so it's all these things that play a very important role in how you're coming into union. And the union is the union of yourself, and then the union either with your twin, and the union of others, the union with life and how you respond to it. And once you identify whatever it is that is within you that you don't feel good about, and once you identify with it and see it for what it is, once again, you set yourself free. And then you're allowing yourself to experience this true divine love. And so whatever you may feel, maybe those blocks, write them down, bring it into its awareness. And this time, you don't try to run away from it or not want to look at it, and not turning to drugs, alcohol, more sex, more, changing into going to another person. Because then all you're doing is you're taking on the element of more things and covering it up and covering up like a mask. And when you keep covering up anything like a mask, then what happens? You start to create more layers of pain. And this is the time where these layers are now peeling back. So we're not allowed anymore to just keep creating more layers. What's happening is that it's all peeling back. And as you're rising, for those of you who are being increased in awareness, and you're feeling that there are certain people that you're not resonating with anymore, and you might be pulling back away from them, or you might find yourself being separated from certain people in your family. It's okay. It's okay, because it's about being totally detached from how anyone else may be, and how you're able to be sovereign and in your joy, regardless of whether someone is in your life. Sometimes in certain cases, we're just going to be loving others from a distance. And it doesn't mean you love them less. It just means that you're honoring yourself more. You see what I'm saying? And you have less baggage. So, and if you find yourself feeling that you have to turn to something other than facing what you have to face, seek to talk to someone. Seek to release what you need to for yourself, so you don't head further down the hole, as one would say, of more pain and sorrow. Forgive yourselves and remember that you are a child of the divine, and that each and every person plays a role and a part to your awakening. So if you see, especially for my fellow twin flame, twin soul, collective energy, consciousness, feminine, masculine, whichever way how you show up, remember, anything that shows up in your reality that looks chaotic, or whatever is spoken coming from your divine counterpart, pay attention to what's being said. Pay attention to what is coming out of their mouths. Pay attention to how you're responding and feeling. Go from within with that. and see what it is to come into balance for yourself, okay? And know that as you are moving towards that path of union consciousness, that as you're bringing it together, remember that everything is still going to keep flowing from one end of the spectrum to the other. So as you're bringing in that part of yourself, and integrating the darker elements of yourself, whether it is a darker element of worry, doubt, how you look, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your body, anything that you can think of that you consider to be the opposite of yourself, right? Or whatever shows up. And then there might be times you're going to switch places, with your divine counterpart, where they're reflecting the light and you're not. And it's to understand that and to be able to be at ease with it. As you allow yourself to be at ease with it, then you can move through it in a greater sense of peacefulness, and then you have more clarity. And with that, then you use divine wisdom. So I hope that helped you for whatever I was guided to share with you today. And just know that there is no such thing as right and wrong when it comes to this journey. It just is. Everything is showing and reflecting the way it should. And be conscious of the words you speak. Be conscious of what you're projecting. And when I say projecting, meaning that if you start focusing on something about someone doing something or being something, you're projecting onto them. You're projecting onto the circumstances. But if you take a step back and look at it as a mirror and a movie, especially, and say, what's showing up in my movie? Okay, I don't like the way the movie looks right now, so I accept it and I embrace it. And if it's in that place where you can change something, and your outer reality will start to change. And just know that no matter what, everything is coming back to that space of who you're connected to. And it all comes into, I would say, harmony. Because you don't want to go back to a place where you're recreating that same timeline of experimenting to go with someone else. And even if you wanted to, I can honestly tell you that Spirit is not going to have you just go jump from one thing to the next. You got to face it. If you don't face it, it's going to show up through someone else or something else, you see? And even if you try to make something happen, if it's not meant to be, it won't be. And to trust your heart, navigate from what is coming from your heart first. And then your mind, if it chooses to rationalize it, use logic too, because sometimes there's some people that just doesn't use logic and common sense. We're in a time of change. The change is now. It's not coming. It's already here. You want to see something. You want to feel something. You want to experience something. Be that which you choose to experience. And on that note, I would like to send you so much love, so much joy, so much peace and harmony. And I will just leave you with just brief, I would say, prayer meditation. On this day, Mother, Father, God, I thank you. I thank you for this divine words and wisdom and healing that is coming through our hearts and our souls. I thank you for everything that comes together in this union. And I thank you for giving us the power and the discernment to know and accept the things that we can change and what we cannot change, and the wisdom to know that. Thank you for everything that comes together in divine love, and that as we continue to shed the old feelings of what love should look like and how it should be, or where it should be and whom it should be with, and that we just continue to focus on that space of love and where it takes us. Because when we are in that space of love, then we remember that everything else starts to fall into place stemming from that love. And this is what creates true wealth. And I'm so in gratitude for Mother and Father God as far as that space is being held for us, because it's always being held in the hands of God for everything to do with this journey and this path. And therefore, we will keep remembering that we are not alone and that we are always together, just like Greece. I love you. Namaste, beautiful souls.